Hello everybody, Cal Banyan here on Cal Banyan's Hypnosis, etc. And this is part 2 in a 3-part series. If you haven't watched part 1, you got to go right there right now, and I'll put a link right below, right down there on calbanyan.com on this page, so that you can watch the first video, and you'll find out why I have Dr. William Horton, or as we call him, Will, back at our center. Well, not back, to our center for the first time after years of juggling schedules and that kind of thing, so that we could have NLP taught at our center. You know, through the years, some people have a misunderstanding about 5-path. 5-path, which is, you know, our form of advanced hypnotherapy. Some people have called it a closed system, and that's not true. For years I've been talking about, if you have additional skills, like if you're an excellent counselor, or if you're a psychologist, or if you happen to have NLP training and skills, then that adds to 5-path. And to kind of, you know, put it out there to not just talk the talk, but also to walk the walk, I've managed to get Will Horton, you know, widely regarded by many people to be the world's premier NLP trainer. And he's a licensed psychologist. His whole bio is in the first video, if you want to know all the details there. He's a licensed psychologist, award-winning hypnotist, master hypnosis trainer, black belt, competitor. This guy is the real deal. And I said, it's time for me to get some training in NLP, and so I'm going to be in the class. Let's do this together. This will never happen again. I'm going to take this NLP class with Will Horton, and you're going to be in it. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm excited. Hey, you know, we're going to just take off where we left off, and one of the, you know, some of the things we talked about is, you know, how people can use NLP if they're a hypnotist, how it makes like the pre-talk better, age regression better, and I have a couple of bullet points that I didn't cover last time that, you know, maybe you can talk a little bit. What areas can you use NLP for?
Well, to me, the easiest is the link between thought and behavior. So when there's like behavior-based changes you want to make, NLP is very fast and effective to maybe go and change the structure of how you're thinking about it, which will alter the behavior of it. Last time we did the little quick sub-modality shift. So if you shift how you think about certain foods, you know, it'll change how you react to those foods. So for things like that, now I use a lot of the NLP techniques in addictions, because you're dealing with a lot of different issues, of course, when you get in addiction, and it's multi-layered, but a lot of it is cues, you know, or anchors or triggers. So we can begin to change some of those triggers, and we can begin to, you know, take away its power, so then you can begin to maybe work on the real issues. You know, as they say in the 12-step community, you know, it's not in like Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not about the drinking. You know, it's about everything around the drinking. And so, but first, of course, you got to get the drinking out of the way before you can attack the problems. So that I use it a lot in addictions, because I deal a lot with addictions. And then it's really, really powerful in sports and performance. And the reason it's so powerful, it's been tested. It's one of the few areas where clinical psychology embraces hypnosis and NLP. Because when you work with athletes or you work with performance, they want the final effect. They don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of, they just want the, you know, to get the result as quickly as possible, right? And so what NLP does is help people make those changes. And usually what happens with athletes is they get stuck in cycles, they get stuck in programs, and so they have to shift their, you know, their programming. And when you watch that happen, then they take off and go. You know, and you hear athletes, I always tell this story. You always, and it's amusing for a fan, or at least me, but people that don't know what we do don't understand it. You know, when a high-priced athlete, you know, like a professional football player. In fact, this just happened last year. In fact, it was, you know, in the season, and the New England Patriots had lost a couple of games and got really beaten badly once. and everybody's talking about, their season's over, there's this and that, right? And then Tom Brady goes, hey, we need to go back and have fun again. We need to just relax and have fun again. Well, a lot of the fans are going crazy. You're making $20 million a year, the team's making this. It should be very serious. But what I heard when he said that is, we need to step back. What we're doing is not working, right? And we need to go back to what works and get rid of the things that they tried to add that maybe wasn't working, right? And to do that, you have to step back. You and I would say, well, you need to go into an altered state to change that. And that's one of the things hypnosis and NLP is wonderful for, is pulling back, changing those submodalities and strategies and things that you're doing so you can get even more effective at it.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking that one of the really cool things about sports is that it's quantifiable, right? I mean, because you're either lifting X amount of weight, or you're crossing a certain distance in a certain amount of time, or there's so many baskets made, and so on. And that's why it was so easy for, to really to embrace NLP from a research perspective. Would that make sense?
Yes, because it's very quantifiable. Either you get the result or you don't, right? It's not just a self-report, I feel better. Are you doing better in your game, or are you getting the result that you want? I just worked with a lady, and she's an actress, very good, done film, did a lot of theater, and now she's doing film. And like a lot of people in that world, which I'm quite familiar with, it's one of my hobbies. It used to be a profession. That's a story for another day. But she had a problem auditioning, right? She couldn't loosen up and have fun when she was auditioning. Right? So what we did is we went in and we changed how she thought about the audition process, right? And here's what we did is, rather than walk in like with your hat in hand begging for a job, which a lot of actors and actresses, have a tendency to think about it. She's a professional, so it's paid. You're not asking for a job. We shifted her submodalities. So she went in with the attitude. Her attitude shift was, she walked in going, I can help you solve this problem. Whatever this part is, if it's right for me, and she had that attitude. If it's right for me, I can solve your problem. I can help you do a better performance, whether it's a play or a movie, I can solve your problem. Which shifted how she auditioned. She was relaxed, she was comfortable, she could ask questions. Well, what are you looking for in this character? And she told me later what one of the changes happened when she went into the audition. She asked a few questions to the director. What are you looking for? What are you that? And they go, well, why are you asking those questions? Because she goes, well, then I can customize, make it more appropriate for what you want. That conversation alone, she told me later, he told her right then he was going to cast her because she knew what she was doing. And then he told her this magic phrase, which I would love, which is, I was done with that part. You were going to do that part. Now I can move on to the other parts in the movie. It was a movie. And so she got a really good part. And then as she got there, she used some of the techniques we talk about, and she actually got upgraded into better parts. So that's two of my favorite areas to use the NLP for is addictions and sports and performance.
Perfect. Really good. Okay, so, since we're talking about it, why don't you get right into it and give a little training seminar here on how to do timeline work.
Well, with timeline work, what I did with this lady, and it kind of ties into what we're doing right now, is, I said, was there, as you would call it, an ISE, an initial sensitizing event? I had her relax, and we used the timeline modality of drift up, see yourself, you're sitting in my chair now, go back to, you were on a set a few days ago, so she saw herself sitting on the set a few days ago. Now drift back, drift back, drift back, and then go back to that one of the times where she did what she thought was a horrible audition, but we stayed detached from it. So she watched it with non-judgmental, just watched it. And she goes, yeah, I could have done better. I could have done this. I could have done that. So then we went in and changed how she thought about it. And then I had her reprogram her thought processes, which rather than when you're in an audition, as I said, you're walking in thinking, I can solve your problem if this part is right for me. Right? Which now changed the thing. It's like, this part may not be right for me. I don't want to do a part that's not good for me any more than you cast me in a part that's no good for me. So it changed, it took the pressure off. So then she went back and viewed all the auditions that she thought did bad on, and it instantly began to change it, where she saw a lot of those parts she wasn't right for anyway. She was too old or too young, too tall, too short. It's all the thing about theater that's very, So she kind of on her own, once we started the process, which is the beauty of the subconscious mind, it began to restructure that. And then we did brought her back to today with timeline, and then do some practices on future auditions where she would go in with a different attitude, totally prepared, learns her lines, ready to go, but open enough to work with what's going on. So, then we had her step into it like a new behavior generator, as I would call it, which we'll talk about later. But she would step in, do it, made herself comfortable with it, and gave herself an anchor. Hers was an okay sign. When she'd get ready to audition, she would fire her anchor, take a deep breath, step into her circle of excellence, which is a lot like I'm sitting here, and like you're sitting there right now, about 2 foot in front of a camera, which is kind of intimidating. And then she started to look at the camera. The other thing we added in, she looked at the camera like it was her best friend. So when she would do the line, she was talking to her best friend, and very supportive. And so just those little changes shifted how she thought about it. And it was actually done, and in a theater, excuse me, it wasn't in my office. We were in a show together, and I worked with her backstage. We did this, took all of 10 minutes. I didn't have time to do a regression, didn't have time to do this, because we were in a rehearsal process for something else. But we did that, and she goes, like, what I love is afterwards she went, I'll let you know how it goes. She had an audition in a couple days. I ran into her the next week, and she goes, got the part. And we talked. She goes, I was so comfortable, it was shocking, And she was actually making sure that the part was right for her, not the other way around, right? And so to me, that's elegance, and that is like how you could incorporate a quick timeline where I didn't have time to do a formal regression, but she needed a change right then.
I love that line. I was so comfortable, it was shocking.
Yes.
It almost sounds like opposites, but I understand completely. So I think that was a really great example. Can you kind of just give us like a quick outline, 1, you do this, 2, you do that, 3, just a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing?
Number one is the first step is to let the client or the person you're talking to know, there's a structure of how you think, how your brain sorts time. You have a past, a present, a future, right? And people go, yeah, that makes sense. And your past goes, usually it's off in one direction or behind you. And there's no right, there's no wrong. And so I asked them to think about, I don't say a significant event, but just think about something. I usually go with fun. Think about something was fun you did, and if you could point to that you did a couple weeks ago, where is it, right? And they might go, I went on this, I'll tell you one I did. I went on this rope survival thing, and it's right there. I think about it, it's just over there. So lets me know their past is going that way. So then that's step 1, so I know their past is going, it usually goes to the left or right or behind them. Then I have them relax real quickly, just take a deep breath. Now imagine you're above yourself, and you can see yourself today. So you're setting a time. Number 2 would be set the time where they are. And then they drift back and can see the rest of the today up to now, and then go back into past to where you need to go. And the elegance of your subconscious mind is your brain can go, as you well know when you're doing ISEs, it'll take you to the spot you need to go to, right? And then you can stay detached because you're above it, looking down on it, so then you can make the alterations. Especially when, like I said, you don't have time to do a formal regression, but you can just alter how they think about it. And many times when people begin to just shift their timeline, it opens them up, because sometimes you get stuck in time. So then you go back to wherever that spot in time is you need to change, wherever it happens to be, and then it gives you a structure of it, and then you bring them back to today, and it begins to restructure it.
Well, I really think this is cool, because with what we covered last time, the quick sub-modality shift, and then this timeline stuff, I think that our viewers are really getting something of value. I want to really thank you for that.
Thank you. It's always a joy to teach it.
And I'm thinking about, if you can, if you can transfer this much knowledge and technique in just a few minutes like you're doing, what it would be like to attend your course. Now your course is 4 days, right?
Yes, I really streamlined it, because I always say, NLP is about making things more fast and more effective. So why do some of the people make the trainings more longer and convoluted? And actually, the students are out there, they're not necessarily paying to hear me talk. They're paying to learn some techniques and some ideas and some concepts they can implement. So I want to cut out as much of the fluff as I can and give the thing. So I make it as quick as possible. And also, I do know when you read the current research on training, people learn best in fast-paced environment, right? And as I know you're a veteran yourself, and when you think of basic training, they don't give you a lot of time to do the things. They give it to you fast and quickly because you learn better that way. And so it speeds up the process. Plus, we all have busy lives, so we make it in the 4 days, and then of course they can ask questions and follow up with me later on. So the class, and usually we do it like we are doing it at your place, which I'm really looking forward to for the first time on the West Coast in over a decade, is a Friday through a Monday. So, you're not totally blocking out 2 weeks of work. You're in there, you can learn some techniques and begin to implement it.
Perfect. So when someone graduates your class, what are they going to be able to do?
Well, they'll be able to understand, a little bit differently of how people think, not why. Usually the big thing I get from people that's never been exposed to it, especially if they have some hypnosis background, it shifts their thinking just a little bit about what they're doing. And I always say one of the things it does is you realize how fascinating people really are. How did you make that decision? Not why, but how. How do you do this? How is this going on in your brain? How do you keep doing this? Right? Let's say if they're stuck, right? And so when they leave there, they have a set of tools or a toolbox that they can begin to implement anywhere. And I always say one of the great takeaways and one of my joys is not just what they're going to do with their clients, with their patients, depending what they do for a living, but with their friends and family members. Because it's the real fast, effective stuff you can do. You're standing in line at Starbucks getting a cup of coffee and you start a conversation with somebody and it's obviously that they're hurting, and you can help shift them a little bit to make them feel better. And to me, that's playing it forward. And that's one of the joys I get with the NLP.
Well, and also you develop a connection to where, nobody's been able to help them with it. Nobody's been able to help them with it over and over, so frustrated. And here's this guy they meet in a coffee shop that does something significant. What's the chances that they're going to want to start seeing you for sessions? Greatly improved. Right. Well, that's so cool. I want to thank you very much. I'm going to wrap this episode up, and then I'm going to hold Will over for the third episode, and he's going to teach you a thought-stopping process. This is something you can help so many people with because they just keep thinking the same things over and over, and that can cause so much pain, so much just frustration, and it can lead to depression. So thank you, Will.
Thank you. It's a joy.
All right, that's it. Hey, you guys, go to calbanyan.com NLP, calbanyan.com/NLP, and you'll get all the information on this class, and you can take the class with me because I'm going to be a student of Will Horton's. All right, that's it. Bye for now. Cal Banyan, over and out. This recording is the property of Cal Banyan and the Banyan Hypnosis Center for Training and Services, Incorporated. All rights reserved, for private use only, may not be duplicated without permission. For contact information, go to www.hypnosiscenter.com.